welcome back to our discussion about software appliances. You know, I really want to dive down a little bit deeper on a customer reality check. Are customers really going for this right now, and what's in their mind as they begin to evaluate the potential challenges and benefits of software appliances?
So I'd love to dive in on that one. We've done a lot of research around this topic. For 3 years we've been running a customer survey asking them what their experiences are and what kind of benefits they're getting from software appliances. A couple things I'd like to point out. One is that we find that customers tell us that about 80% of the cost of deploying an application happens before the application is even touched once by the end users in the organization. So that's one metric. Another thing we find is that as customers begin to experiment with software appliances, they're finding that the experiences they're getting with the install process, with the management process, and where they deinstall, the deinstall process, where you can actually take these things back out, is consistently better than they expect. So all positives. The only challenge that one of the bigger challenges, at least that I see happening in the industry, is that we get some enterprise customers that say, well, gee, we don't really want this thing in our enterprise unless we know exactly what version the operating system is, what version the middleware and database components are, and they get very hung up on what the individual components are within the appliance, when in reality they should be looking at it as a black box being supported by an ISV.
Yeah, I think, just to sort of step on that a little bit, and we were really worried about that just because I think the layers of bureaucracy in terms of what customers are, when they make a decision, I mean, they've created a lot of committees, they've got a lot of lawyers, and what's happening is that they want to know everything that's coming in now, because they no longer want this thing coming in.
Compliance, right?
Yeah, corporate compliance issues, absolutely.
And now what we're trying to do, certainly from a groundwork perspective with Novell, is get the thing installed and bypass all of that. And so our expand, our bundle process with the SUSE product line has got the appliance, they get it, they're not going through some process, they're doing it at a light economic value, and they're expanding really rapidly, and they've already accepted all the terms when they went in there. So we're getting past a lot of the bureaucracy, and they're building these appliances because they have long-term plans to the cloud.
And really for the customer to get the benefit of the appliance, they have to move away from that kind of model where it takes 5 specialists to install the 5 pieces of infrastructure so they get the benefit of the application. Right? They're looking for an application solution, and if they can't look at it as a black box, then we're going to be into not just the bureaucracy, but the scheduling issues, right? So the application needs a database. Well, the DBA is on vacation for the next week, and then he's got 3 other projects that matter. So I think a lot of the value is in speed to market.
Right.
And for the customer to get the benefit of that, they do have to look at this as a single certified stack for this particular application. And our own experience has been, customers saying, 70 to 80% reduction in effort. But I think it's the elapsed time that is sometimes most compelling for them. They want to get this thing in there, they want to see if it works, and then they want to roll it out and get a little benefit out of it quickly.
I think being able to trial a new technology very quickly without a whole lot of commitment in the first place on the customer's part is another benefit that the customer gets. They can experiment with it without a huge cost to them. And we see that as a massive benefit because they don't have this 80% of the cost of installing and configuring a backup software.
Yeah, and the experience is more reliable because instead of having 5 specialists tweaking knobs in each of their 5 layers, leading to some unknown result in terms of performance, you've got a pre-configured set of software that works well.
Yeah, we as ISV can control their experience, which is not possible with just a software download.
Is there a sweet spot in the market for these appliances? Is it global 2,000 companies? Is it mid-market? What type of size do you think will be adopting?
Well, I think the early adopters for us has been a lot of MSPs, have started on it, and I think it's because they're delivering a service for somebody else and they have to be at some standard rate. So they've adopted on there. Although, we've seen, I probably got, of the 125 orders I got in the first 110 days with Novell, I'd say, 10% of those were the Fortune 500, and a high proportion of them were in Europe, and they were medium-sized companies. So it's a lot of different areas.
So when we're talking about customer bases, it's not just the end customer; it could be a service provider as a customer for the appliance model.
Well, and one of the things we often forget as we talk about the appliance program is, of course, Novell is an ISV. So on the other side of it, to echo some of your comments about being able to adopt a solution, we provide Sentinel Log Manager by case in point example as an appliance simply because it makes installing that software so much easier, so much faster, regardless of where. And that, of course, helps our customers as well. So.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, one of the real beauties from our point of view as we look at a software appliance, we see a configuration that ISVs can manage and can control. And instead of having 3 different Unixes with 2 different version levels of each Unix operating system, then having multiple layers of middleware in between, and then having the actual application, you wind up with this matrix which has, you know, like a 3x5 or a 6x8 set of combinations, so that when a customer calls, you figure out which of those cells they're in. You suddenly don't have that kind of complexity. I think that has to be good for the ISVs.
John, the anecdotes we're hearing in this roundtable, similar to what you're hearing among the broader set of early adopters when it comes to maybe the customer base as well as the ISVs?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, these guys are appropriately talking about the end customer benefits of the Appliance program. For us, one step back, this audience is in fact our customer, right? So from our perspective, how do we provide this partner community a set of assets and tools that allow them to expand their market reach, right? It's really costly. They know the matrix of support that has to go on with all these various platforms. So how do you create a tool set to allow them to pursue new models, new markets in a cost-effective way? So these are a very important part of our customer set from this perspective.
Well, we've talked about being faster, we've talked about it more reliable, a faster path to an end solution. Another thing that occasionally plays is that customers are saying, you know, I don't know whether I'm going to run this in my data center or in the cloud. I want one solution that can meet both needs. So that ability to say, okay, I'll try it now quickly, reliably, and then I'll decide whether I'm going to deploy it in the cloud or in my data center or maybe through another partner.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is pause here, wrap up this chapter, and we'll come back in a minute or two and talk about how the ISVs not only benefit from the appliances, but maybe how the ISVs can begin to help customers decide on-premise, in the cloud, where is this really going to run?